Welcome Exiles to a video about a game that finally competes with Path of Exile. Now first off, I want to talk a bit about D4. D4 is changing the game, guys. If you haven't heard, you can drop 2 items in 2 different regions and those items will actually look different based on the region they're dropped in. Absolutely mind-blowing innovation is what we're talking about here. Not only that, the Paragon board system allows you to think you're not just grabbing 5% more damage per point or 5% less damage per point, because instead of it just being you clicking into int 100 times or 1,000 times, you actually get to click multiple things on a board that say 5% less or 5% more damage. And it's really different, guys. Trust me, it's a different system, okay? It's innovative. Next up, on top of all of that, Diablo 4 is bringing world bosses to an ARPG. Now, if you're thinking MMO, that's probably because that's what an MMO does. It makes sense in an MMO. In an ARPG, there might be some obvious problems with doing world bosses. So, moral of the story is, I'm saying all this, simply put, everything I've seen from D4, between the trailers, between the YouTube propaganda where they're trying to say D4 is reimagining and reinventing the game of ARPGs, it's not. It's just simply, as far as I can tell, a watered down version of Diablo 3.5, where you're endlessly going to scale to trillions of damage, probably by the end of week 1, if they don't get the big set bonuses in right out the gate. Maybe you get to trillions of damage in maybe the 3rd season, but initially you start out with billions of damage based on the set bonuses they're probably going to inevitably give you, and this whole game is going to be shaped around. Because let's be honest, guys, there's nothing full of life or nothing really truly creative about what they've shown us in this game. I do want to talk about a game that is actually changing the ARPG scene, and I am talking about Last Epoch, actually. This game is something I picked up about 2 years ago. I tried it out and I said to myself, these devs, they're doing something, they're working at it. It's not really there yet. The graphics aren't there yet. The endgame systems aren't there yet. It's not a compelling enough system, but I can see they're making strides to make it better. I'm going to pick this up in a few years and see where they're at. Well, 2 years later, I'm trying it out on their multiplayer launch. And now, granted, there is some bugs with multiplayer. They're still in the beta of the game. Aside from that, this game really has blown me away. It has a lot of new systems that I think are really cool. The graphics have gotten much, much better. The visuals are very clear. The crafting system's amazing. And the end game system is compelling, and there's a reason to grind and a reason to play it. I'm, of course, speaking to a player base that likes ARPGs. Blah, blah, blah. It's like 4 letters. Why is it 4 letters? Point is, if you're a casual fan of Diablo 3 and you enjoyed Diablo 3 before, you're probably going to enjoy Diablo 4 now, is my guess. But ultimately, if you want something with a little bit more depth, a little bit more substance, something that allows you to be creative and allows you to have fun making a cool, fanciful character that isn't in one of the 5 set bonuses based on what the devs have designed you to play, well, Last Epoch is giving you something that's compelling and convincing. It's not as complex as PoE, and maybe it's a stepping stone towards actually playing a good game. So I would recommend to you, if you haven't played PoE before and you're scared to start PoE, maybe try out Last Epoch. It could give you a taste of what a good ARPG is, so that way you don't keep drowning yourself in the boredom and the sadness and the soulless life of Diablo 3 and then Diablo 4 soon to come. Point is, I want to go through 5 cool things I've found in Last Epoch that are convincing me that this game really is actually doing something interesting and compelling for ARPGs, and it's pushing the genre of the game forward rather than taking it to the Stone Age, which Diablo 4 is trying to do thanks to their money-hungering, basically, owners of Activision. So, check out my points. First off, for things Last Epoch does well, is it outlines where attacks are going to happen. Every single boss attack, or most attacks in the game, frankly, all give you some sort of outline that tells you where is the attack going to be. It's very clear. Now, in the long run, I'm not sure if I prefer this over the cleaner, more aesthetic version where you don't get all the visual cues, but in terms of having a better time as a new player, as learning fights, having these visual cues, giving you an idea of what the hell's going on, having that visual clarity, honestly, it's a fantastic, I guess, breath of fresh air for me as a Path of Exile player, where a lot of the times we have no idea what the hell is going on. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of what I'm talking about when I say Last Epoch gets visual cues right, because every single thing, it's very clear where the attacks are going to be and what you need to do to dodge them. For point number 2, what's great about Last Epoch is the crafting. How it simply works is you get items, they have forging potential. That is essentially how many tries you get to upgrade your item. And simply put, there are glyphs and there are runes. These are resources you pick up while you're mapping very passively. You can one click and you'll pick up a group of 100 runes all like next to each other. It's very easy to collect these while mapping. You don't really think about it. And then every now and then when you drop a decent item, say this belt was to drop on the floor, I'd pick it up and I'd say, hey, that has stats I want. If I can upgrade that, that would be a decent upgrade for my current belt. So you just chuck it in the forge and you say, I want to upgrade, for example, this health mod. Well, we'd go for Glyph of Hope, which increases our odds to not break the item, essentially allowing us to craft it further and min-max it. So I'd go for this. I'd upgrade it once. Okay, we did all right there. We see if we can go for it again. We go for it again. We didn't lose forging potential, which is pretty cool. And then maybe I check the rolls and I see, oh, it's a max roll % life. If I want to preserve that max roll, well, I go over to Glyph of Order and I say, I'm going to upgrade with the Glyph of Order. That guarantees the preserved max roll will roll for the next tier as well. So when I upgrade this, it goes all the way to a max 11% roll. Wait a second. I get scammed? Did my Glyph of Order fail? Maybe I don't understand something about Glyph of Order, but I thought if you have a max roll and you use Glyph of Order, it should roll the next tier as a max roll, but maybe there's something I'm misunderstanding about Glyph of Order. / maybe I misread it and it was actually an 8% roll. Anyways, point is, I have good life now, I have good fire damage, I have good fire res. Say I like this ward cleanse ailment thing, say I want to upgrade that, or maybe I want to Glyph of Despair it in case I can get some other good mod. Well, I don't particularly like this base per se, so I'm not going to necessarily try to keep it. So I'm just going to see if I can upgrade this ward ailment cleanse. And so we'll go ahead and we'll see we can get it all the way T4, T5. We got it all the way upgrade. So we have an item now that has max upgrades on all the different rolls of a belt. And this would be maybe a good candidate to combine with a legendary potential because you got a lot of T5 mods, or it's just a good belt that I can throw on my character. And that doesn't take a lot of thought, doesn't take a lot of process. You can throw it in, mix max, try to basically re-roll your item a little bit and get a decent item out of it. And it's just like, it's something you can do on the fly, feels good, and doesn't feel bad when you miss because you know there's going to be more cool bases that drop and you'll be able to throw an item in there and craft on it. It completely avoids the monotony of having to trade for a bunch of resources to then spend all your money and then lose everything because you don't hit the item, because as a relatively reliable chance of success, it means you hit your power ceiling decently quickly in Last Epoch. But then again, there are ways to take it past that power ceiling, which I'll talk about next. Point number 3 for things Last Epoch does right, and this has to do with chase items that you can grind for, something to strive for, something that gets you excited. Now, the gear progression may seem like it's easy to hit top tier rares, but that isn't necessarily the end of progression. That is only the beginning, because there's something you can strive for and something you can grind for, which is legendary potential. I think this is a very unique, very cool addition to ARPGs. I love it. Basically what it is unique items sometimes can drop with legendary potential, and this can roll from 1 to 2 to 3 to even 4 legendary potential. And what does this thing mean? Well, quite frankly, what it means, and now it's very, very rare, you're probably never going to see a legendary potential 4 on a high level base. It's just not, the odds of it happening are very low, but legitimately you could see legendary potential 2, 1, and 3 pretty reasonably that I've seen a legendary potential 3 item, and I haven't really played that long in Last Epoch myself. And what does it do? Well, it allows you to take basically a rare item's mods and put it on a unique item. So say you could find your best in slot chest piece, say Titan's Heart was your best in slot chest piece, and it's just missing one crucial stat you need in your build. Maybe it needs some specific level to your skill, or it needs some more life, or it needs some sort of stat like strength or vitality or something. Well, quite frankly, you could use legendary potential to have a chance at putting those mods on it. Now, with 1 legendary potential, basically you're putting a rare chest piece with 4 mods and you're getting a 1 in 4 to hit the mod you want. Or you have a rare chest piece which has 3 mods you want, and it's maybe a 75% chance you get a good, better outcome. For my example here, I had a Euron's Wisdom. I was trying to hit vitality and % life on it just to have some giga HP chest piece. Didn't work out. I didn't hit the % life because I had a 3 legendary potential. You see vitality, cold res, and Abyssal Decay Duration. Those are all mods that don't normally come on this chest piece, but I was trying to slam some rare mods onto it from a rare I had. Now, granted, I probably was wasting my 3 legendary potential Euron's Wisdom. I don't know how good this chest piece is. I don't really have a concept for a lot of power levels in Last Epoch, but it sounded like something fun to do and something fun to try, and it gets me excited because for my own character, I'm thinking that I want to try to make an Exsanguinous with legendary potential. And that leads me to point number 4 of things Last Epoch does right, which is it's very friendly to farming your own gear. And what do I mean by that? Well, quite simply, if I were to go, let me go ahead and give you a little a little demonstration here. If I were to go to a zone and I wanted to farm, for example, Exsanguinace, I want to farm unique chess pieces if I want to get an Exsanguinace and have a chance at it dropping a legendary potential. Well, simply put, if I go to a specific area, this monolith system has the ability to farm for specific items or specific unique base types. If I wanted to go to, for example, this frost, fire, and death area, I forget what it's called. That's not the right name for this zone. But this zone specifically has the outcome where you'll see if I choose to do legendary, the legendary exclusive Echo reward is unique item or chess piece. Unique item or set chess piece, that's the exclusive reward. So if I'm doing this zone, this is a reward type that occurs somewhat regularly, which means you can reliably farm unique body armors, and that gives you a way to have more and more odds at getting an Exsanguinace. Or, for example, you can farm unique items by specifically looking at each of these zones. Each of these zones represents a boss fight which has a drop table that you can farm for. For example, my character, if I'm farming for low life gear, there's also boots called Last Step? I'm not sure. Point is, it's boots that work well with Exsanguinace if we're going for this low life tech. Point is, I would farm that zone to have a chance, a 50% chance at that boot drop happening, and I would keep farming the zone and keep re-rolling chances at getting those boots with legendary potential. That's a simple idea of there is a concept of whatever we're building around, whatever we're making a character for, there is a way to target that item and get it to drop by specifically running a certain map or a certain zone of the monolith system. It's very unique in that it is very SSF friendly, in that you can farm your own gear, and it feels good to do so, in my opinion. And for the final thing I like about Last Epoch system is its compelling endgame system. That is honestly really, really good. Now, to start things off with, you have the basics, which is, in an ARPG, how can we really test the power of our character? Something that endlessly scales, gets endlessly difficult. And for Last Epoch, that's arenas. Basically, it's a wave by wave. Monsters get harder and harder and harder until they eventually kill you, or you frankly fall asleep at the wheel and maybe you die to being AFK. I don't know. Point is, this is similar to Greater Rift, where the difficulty just scales crazy, or Delve, where you just keep going down and you keep going down and eventually you just can't keep going down, right? This is to just test character power. This is to test character limits. Ultimately, that's a sort of system that it's nice, but it gets boring real fast because it gets repetitive and it gets old. Delve, GRs, that stuff just doesn't really do it for me, but it's nice to have in the game to test your character's limits. After that, they have these new things called dungeons, which is new to me because 2 years ago this didn't exist. But basically what it is, when we're doing our normal day-to-day experience of Last Epoch, doing monoliths, going through grinding some different, basically trying to farm specific things, we can actually drop these things called dungeon keys, which lead to unique and challenging dungeons, which have 1, 2, 3, 4 tiers of difficulty. The fourth tier being like an uber boss level difficulty, and the first tier being something you can do once you've completed the campaign. I think is roughly around the range of difficulty we're talking here, and you can get the experience whether you're on the beginner side of Last Epoch or you have a really geared out character and you're ready for a challenge. But the other thing that's great about these dungeons, not only are they unique and they're cool and they're compelling, they have cool reward systems. Each of them has a unique reward system. Soulfire, for example, allows you to have a super gambler, which has a very high odds of giving you really good items back, and this one has the unique reward system that you don't really get anywhere else in Last Epoch. And then you look at something like Temporal Sanctum. This is what introduced the legendary potential system, which allows you to min-max and chase a specific base with a specific amount of legendary potential, craft a super rare item to combine with that, and it gives you that ultimate end game chase of I want to min-max my character, that sort of thing that you really want in an ARPG. So that's a compelling end game currency or loot system. And then Lightless Arbor, I haven't done this one yet, but from what I've been told, it's a massive currency sink. You can take all this gold you've been farming up. Say I have 500,000 gold here. I can go to Lightless Arbor and I can buy myself some ultra juicy rewards at the end game by investing into basically this. It's like this door that's like, hey, would you like to spend this much money to get this amount of loot based on beating this dungeon? Point is, it scales up, and I think 500k is actually small change for the tier 4 version of the dungeon, where it actually has some even juicier rewards at the end. Moral of the story is, All these keys have a unique reward system that's compelling, along with a hard, difficult, interesting boss fight, and the ability to take it on at an early level when you're just newer to the game and you have a character that just got through maps or just got 2 maps or through the campaign or whatever, then all the way up to a character that you've min-maxed to the teeth and you're really ready to take on a challenge. And I think that's pretty cool. So they have unique dungeons, they have an arena system, and then on top of that, they have the monolith system, which I think ultimately is one of the first times I've really felt there's something that even comes close to touching the intricacies and the feels good of PoE's map system. Basically, it starts you out at level 58 zone where you're going to fight through these monoliths to beat a boss. And once you beat that boss, then you can take on the level 66 or the level 62 zone. And point is, you progress through each of these zones, unlocking basically the potential to get specific drops from those specific boss fights, and you can keep doing those boss fights to get their loot if there's something that's unique to your build. So it's got SSF friendliness as well as some interesting boss fights for each of these zones. And then after the fact, after you've done all of the boss fights, you've completed up to the level 90 zones, you can then empower your monoliths and take on a greater challenge that you can then end up scaling for more loot and more rewards along with more difficulty. I think it's a pretty cool system. I like it a lot. And all in all, between these things I mentioned today, Last Epoch has really stepped it up in a lot of other areas, like visuals, like in-game descriptions. You can look up so many mechanics just to see what things are. Very good tutorial, like, I don't know if tutorials are like the guide system where you can look up mechanics and figure out how the hell does this work. This is something you couldn't normally do in PoE. You'd have to go to the PoE wiki to try to figure out mechanics, and it's right there. Press G and you can look whatever the hell you want up. There's so many things Last Epoch has going for it well. 2 years ago, this wasn't a game I would consider playing regularly. It's something that I would think, this has a bright future, but it's not really there for me yet. Right now in its current state, this is a game I full-heartedly can recommend, and I honestly am probably going to be playing this every single third month of the PoE League from here on out. As long as they're doing new content releases and stuff, I'm going to be hooked and wanting to play this game because I think it's really getting there to be compelling and interesting. Right now, I'm kind of addicted to it. There's some stuff I want to farm for, and I'm excited to farm for it based on the system set up in this game. I think this is an example of an ARPG that is doing things right and is actually bringing something new to the table that's interesting and exciting. I think if you look at all those hype videos for Diablo 4, I think there's a bunch of propaganda. People are lying to you because Diablo 4 is clearly what appears to be something that's going to be soulless, lifeless, dead inside. I'm going to grab your money and I'm going to run because there's nothing there that speaks to me. That is a good ARPG. It just doesn't have what it takes. If you're somebody who wants to play an ARPG that's compelling and interesting and has a cool sandbox to play around in, I think Last Epoch and Path of Exile are doing it right. Last Epoch's not anywhere near Path of Exile's level yet, but it's the second best ARPG out there currently, in my opinion, and it's doing those things really, really well. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. I'm not sponsored by Last Epoch, if that's what you're wondering. I just like the game a lot, and I've been enjoying it, so I'm recommending it to you guys as well. And if you play it, hopefully you enjoy it too. As always, thanks for watching the video. Take care, Exiles, and peace out.